The waterlogged hiking boots were still laced tight when park rangers pulled them from the mud beside the massive alligator nest, 4 years after Kata Lindström had vanished into the Myakka River swamplands. On March 14, 2019, 28-year-old Kata Lindström drove her rented Nissan Altima to Myakka River State Park in Sarasota County, Florida. The Finnish environmental science graduate student had been traveling alone through the southeastern United States for 6 weeks, documenting wetland ecosystems for her doctoral thesis at the University of Helsinki. Security footage from the park entrance shows her arriving at 11:47 a.m., wearing khaki shorts, a white tank top, and the same brown leather hiking boots that would later be discovered entangled in cypress roots. She paid the $7 entrance fee with exact change and told the gate attendant she planned to kayak the upper river for 3 hours before returning to her hotel in Bradenton. Kata had maintained the same rigid daily schedule throughout her research trip. She woke at 5:30 a.m., consumed black coffee and 2 pieces of toast with jam, then spent exactly 90 minutes reviewing field notes before departing for each day's location. Her hotel room at the Hampton Inn contained 17 spiral-bound notebooks filled with meticulous observations written in blue ink, each page numbered and dated. She photographed water samples, measured pH levels, and recorded GPS coordinates with scientific precision. Her research supervisor, Dr. Antti Väisänen, later described her as methodical to the point of obsession during their final Skype call on March 13th. She had told him the Myakka River represented the final data collection site before her return to Finland. The kayak rental operator, 62-year-old Miguel Santos, remembered Kata specifically because she asked detailed questions about water depth, current patterns, and wildlife activity. She declined his offer of a guided tour and refused to wear the provided life jacket, explaining that she was a certified rescue diver. Santos watched her paddle upstream toward the deeper channels where the river narrowed between dense cypress stands. The rental agreement she signed listed her expected return time as 3:00 p.m. Her cell phone showed its last GPS ping at 12:31 p.m., 1.7 miles northeast of the launch point. When Kata failed to return by closing time, Santos contacted park rangers at 6:15 p.m. The temperature had dropped to 49 degrees after sunset, and fog was settling across the water. Ranger Patricia Holbrook launched the first search boat at 6:45 p.m. using high-powered spotlights to scan the shoreline. They followed her likely route based on the GPS data, calling her name every 50 yards. The only responses came from startled herons and the occasional splash of a fleeing alligator. Search teams discovered Kata's kayak at 10:20 a.m. on March the 16th, wedged upright between a cluster of cypress knees in a narrow channel 2 miles from the launch point. The bright yellow, recreational kayak showed no signs of damage or impact. Her waterproof research bag remained secured to the front deck, containing her camera, pH meter, and that day's notebook. The final entry, written in her characteristic precise handwriting, was timed at 12:25 p.m. Water clarity excellent. Temperature 74 degrees. Large alligator observed sunning approximately 30 meters south, proceeding to collect sample near deadfall area. The camera contained 43 photographs taken that morning. The final image, captured at 12:29 p.m., showed the view from her kayak, looking toward a fallen cypress tree that formed a natural bridge across the narrow channel. Enhancement by the Sarasota County Sheriff's Digital Forensics Unit revealed what appeared to be ripples in the water near the tree, suggesting recent movement. The camera's GPS data indicated she had been stationary for approximately 4 minutes before taking the photograph. Kata's cell phone was never recovered, but phone company records showed she had attempted to send a text message at 12:31 p.m. The message failed to transmit due to poor cellular coverage in the swamp's interior. The intended recipient was her younger sister Aino, who later testified that Kata sent her location updates during every research expedition. The unsent message read simply, "Something large, moving in water ahead." Professional dive teams from the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office spent 11 days searching the murky water around the kayak's discovery location. Visibility below the surface measured less than 18 inches due to tannic acid from decomposing vegetation. Divers used systematic grid patterns to probe the soft-bottom sediment, finding nothing but fallen branches, beer cans, and the occasional turtle shell. The water depth in the area ranged from 4 to 12 feet, with several underwater cavities carved out by seasonal flooding. Wildlife officials documented 37 alligators within a half-mile radius of where the kayak was found. The largest measured 13 feet, 4 inches long, and was estimated to weigh over 700 pounds. Dr. Frank Mazzotti, a University of Florida alligator specialist, explained that the Myakka River system contained one of the highest alligator densities in Florida, with some areas supporting over 25 animals per square mile. He noted that alligators rarely attacked adult humans unless directly threatened or defending nests, but added that solo kayakers represented the most vulnerable category of potential victims. The search operation expanded to include helicopter overflights, thermal imaging, and cadaver dogs tracking along the shoreline. Volunteers from 3 counties joined professional search teams in covering over 40 square miles of wetlands. They found fragments of other kayaks, decades-old camping, gear, the skeletal remains of numerous deer and wild hogs, but no trace of Kata Lindstrom. After 18 days, officials suspended active search efforts and reclassified the case as a presumed drowning with body recovery pending. Kata's parents, Olavi and Helmi Lindstrom, flew from Helsinki to Florida on March 25th. They spent 2 weeks walking the same trails their daughter had explored, speaking with every park employee and volunteer searcher. Olavi, a retired forestry engineer, studied topographical maps and identified 12 locations where his daughter might have gone ashore to collect samples. Each site revealed only undisturbed vegetation and normal wildlife signs. Helmi, a mathematics professor, calculated that her daughter's body should have surfaced within 72 hours if she had drowned in the open water, based on water temperature and decomposition rates. The case attracted international attention after Kata's research advisor contacted Finnish media outlets. Dr. Väisänen emphasized that his student was an experienced outdoorswoman who had conducted fieldwork in remote locations across Scandinavia without incident. Finnish television crews traveled to Florida to document the search efforts, interviewing park officials and local residents. The coverage prompted dozens of tips from people claiming to have seen Kata at gas stations, restaurants, and other locations throughout the southeast, but none proved credible. Park rangers continued routine patrols of the area throughout 2019 and 2020, photographing any unusual discoveries and maintaining detailed logs of wildlife observations. They documented seasonal changes in alligator populations, noting that several large animals had established territories near the location where Kata's kayak was found. Ranger Holbrook, who led the initial search, made special attention to any disturbances in the vegetation or unusual animal behavior patterns. The case file remained open but inactive until March 2023, when a routine wildlife survey in the Mayaka, River State Park's backcountry, led to an unexpected discovery. Rangers Kevin Murphy and Lisa Chen were conducting their annual alligator nest count in a remote section of swampland approximately 3 miles southeast of where Kata's kayak had been found. They were documenting a particularly large nest built against the base of an ancient cypress tree when Chen noticed something unusual partially buried in the mud nearby. The brown leather hiking boots emerged from the sandy soil, still laced, and positioned as if someone had simply stepped out of them. The leather had been bleached nearly white by 4 years of sun exposure, but the distinctive Merrill logo remained visible on the tongue of each boot. Inside the left boot, searchers found a deteriorated wool sock with a small hole near the heel, exactly matching the description Kata's sister had provided of her preferred hiking socks. The boots were located 67 feet from the active alligator nest, which measured 8 feet in diameter and contained 23 eggs. Wildlife biologist Dr. Sarah Koenig determined that the nest belonged to a mature female alligator, likely the same animal that had used this location for multiple breeding seasons. The surrounding area showed clear signs of regular alligator traffic, with slide marks in the mud and flattened vegetation creating paths between the nest and the water. Forensic examination of the boots revealed microscopic fragments of plant matter consistent with Mayaka River swampland vegetation. The soles contained embedded seeds from at least 6 different native plant species, indicating extended contact with the forest floor. Most significantly, both boots showed identical puncture marks near the ankle area, with paired holes measuring exactly 2.3 inches apart. Dr. Robert Harrison, a forensic pathologist with 30 years of experience, confirmed the holes matched the tooth spacing of a large alligator. Crime scene investigators established a perimeter around the discovery site and conducted a methodical search of the surrounding area. They found no other personal items, clothing fragments, or human remains within a 100-yard radius. Metal detectors revealed only natural debris and decades-old litter left by previous park visitors. The soil analysis indicated the boots had been in their current location for an extended period, with root systems growing through the eyelets and leather degraded by repeated wet-dry cycles. The alligator nest's proximity to the boots prompted wildlife officials to relocate the eggs to a controlled hatching facility. During the careful excavation process, biologists discovered additional organic material mixed with the nesting materials, including small fragments of blue denim fabric and what appeared to be synthetic fiber from outdoor clothing. DNA testing on these materials proved inconclusive due to environmental degradation, but the fabric samples were consistent with the type of outdoor gear Kata typically wore. Park officials immediately reopened the investigation and contacted Kata's family in Finland. Aino Lindstrom, now 31 and working as a marine biologist in Stockholm, flew to Florida to examine the evidence. She confirmed the boots were identical to the pair her sister had purchased specifically for the research trip. Kata bought them 3 weeks before leaving for America, she told investigators. She spent hours breaking them in, walking around Helsinki wearing them under her winter boots. The discovery prompted a renewed search effort focused on the area surrounding the alligator nest. Teams used ground-penetrating radar to scan for buried remains, while divers explored underwater caves and debris piles within a half-mile radius. They mapped every significant alligator den and documented the territories of 17 mature animals currently inhabiting the region. Several of these alligators showed evidence of advanced age and substantial size, with the largest measuring over 14 feet in length. Dr. Mazzotti returned to examine the site and provide expert analysis of the evidence. He confirmed that the puncture patterns in the boots were consistent with an alligator attack, but noted several unusual aspects of the discovery. Alligators typically consume their prey entirely or abandon it in deep water, he explained. Finding: boots removed and deposited this far from the river suggests either unusual predator behavior or some other explanation for how they arrived at this location. The investigation revealed that the female alligator using the nest site had been tagged and monitored since 2015. Wildlife tracking data showed she measured 12 feet, 8 inches long, and weighed an estimated 650 pounds. Her territory included the water channel where Kata's kayak was discovered, and she had successfully nested at the same location for at least 6 consecutive years. Park records indicated she was known for aggressive territorial behavior during nesting season, which coincided with Kata's disappearance in March 2019. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Maria Santos examined the boots using specialized imaging equipment to identify any additional evidence. The interior surfaces showed no traces of blood or tissue, suggesting they had been thoroughly cleaned by environmental exposure over 4 years. However, she discovered small bone fragments embedded in the mud inside the left boot, measuring less than 2 millimeters each. DNA extraction from these fragments remained ongoing at the time of this report. The location where the boots were found required a 20-minute hike through dense undergrowth from the nearest water access point. The terrain included fallen logs, thick palmetto stands, and several areas of soft ground that would challenge even experienced hikers. Rangers noted that the site was virtually impossible to reach by kayak during normal water levels, suggesting that the boots either traveled there through some natural process or were transported by the resident alligator population. Security. Camera footage from a nearby hunting lodge, previously overlooked during the original investigation, was retrieved and digitally enhanced. The cameras, positioned to monitor a wildlife feeding station, had captured movement in the tree canopy approximately 400 yards from the boot discovery site on March 14, 2019 at 1:47 p.m. The grainy footage showed what appeared to be a large disturbance in the vegetation, followed by a period of unusual bird activity suggesting a significant predator presence. Phone records revealed that Kata had downloaded detailed maps of the Miyaka River system to her device 3 days before her disappearance. The maps included GPS coordinates for several remote locations, including one point approximately 200 yards from where her boots were eventually found. This coordinate was marked in her phone's notes application with the notation, possible rare, orchid habitat, investigative time permits. The renewed investigation attracted attention from documentary filmmakers and true crime podcasters, leading to increased public interest in the case. However, park officials promised restricted media access to the discovery site to preserve potential evidence and protect the sensitive ecosystem. The alligator nest area was designated off-limits to visitors while forensic work continued. Dr. Chen, the ranger who discovered the boots, reported unusual alligator behavior in the weeks following the find. The female who built that nest has been much more aggressive than normal, she observed. She's been spending more time on land, which is atypical for this time of year. It's almost like she's guarding something we can't see. The investigation entered its current phase with multiple forensic laboratories analyzing evidence and wildlife experts studying behavioral patterns of the local alligator population. Kata's family established a memorial fund for wetland research while continuing to seek answers about her disappearance. The case remains officially open, with investigators following several active leads related to the boot discovery. As of the most recent update, the female alligator continues to nest at the same site where Kata Lindström's boots were found. Wildlife cameras now monitor the area continuously, recording every movement and documenting any changes in the surrounding environment. The boots themselves rest in an evidence locker at the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, their worn leather surfaces holding secrets that 4 years in the Florida swampland have yet to reveal. Additional evidence emerged in July 2023 when maintenance workers cleaning the park's water filtration system discovered a corroded digital memory card wedged in the intake screen. The microSD card, swollen from prolonged water exposure, had somehow traveled downstream from the interior swampland where Kata disappeared. Digital recovery specialists at the FBI's Tampa field office successfully extracted partial data from the damaged storage device using specialized equipment, typically reserved for terrorism investigations. The recovered files contained 17 Photographs not present on Kata's camera, all taken between 12:31 p.m. and 12:44 p.m. on March 14, 2019. The images showed increasingly murky water, tangled vegetation, and what appeared to be a narrow channel barely wide enough for a kayak. The final photograph captured a massive dark shape moving beneath the surface, with only a portion of what appeared to be a scaled tail visible in the frame's lower right corner. Metadata from the memory card revealed the photographs were taken with a waterproof action camera that Kata had not declared to park officials. Her Amazon purchase history, obtained through a federal warrant, confirmed she had bought a GoPro Hero 7 camera 2 days before her trip, along with a chest-mounted harness system. The camera itself was never found, but the memory card had apparently ejected during whatever incident led to Kata's disappearance. Frame-by-frame analysis of the final photograph showed displacement patterns in the water, consistent with an animal measuring at least 12 feet in length moving at high speed, just below the surface. Dr. Mazzotti estimated the creature's width at approximately 18 inches based on the wake pattern, indicating an alligator of exceptional size even by Florida standards. The timestamp on this image corresponded exactly with Kata's final GPS ping, recorded by her cell phone. Forensic audio specialists extracted degraded sound files from the memory card, revealing ambient noise recorded by the camera's microphone during the final minutes. The audio contained normal swamp sounds, birds, insects, water movement, until 12:43 p.m., when a loud splash interrupted the background noise. This was followed by what sounded like rapid breathing and the scraping of hard objects against each other, possibly kayak equipment banging together during sudden movement. The most disturbing audio segment occurred at 12:44 p.m., capturing a sound that wildlife experts described as consistent with a large alligator's territorial bellow, but recorded at extremely close range. The vocalization lasted 14 seconds and measured 110 decibels, loud enough to cause physical discomfort to anyone nearby. The recording ended abruptly mid-bellow, suggesting the camera or its mounting system failed at that moment. Park officials used the newly discovered photographs to identify the exact location where Kata's final moments were recorded. The narrow channel shown in the images was located 400 yards northeast of where her kayak was eventually found, in an area thick with overhanging branches and submerged logs. Water depth measurements at this location averaged 8 feet, with several deeper pools carved out by decades of alligator activity. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the channel bottom revealed an unusual density of large objects buried in the sediment. Dive teams recovered fragments of fiberglass, consistent with kayak construction, along with pieces of aluminum that matched the description of Kata's paddle. The largest fiberglass piece measured 18 inches long and showed deep gouges along one edge, with spacing consistent with alligator claw marks. The discovery prompted investigators to re-examine the kayak, found 2 days after Kata's disappearance. Previously overlooked damage to the stern revealed hairline cracks in the fiberglass hull, invisible without specialized lighting, but consistent with impact from a large, heavy object. The cracks formed a pattern suggesting the kayak had been struck from below with considerable force, then somehow remained afloat long enough to drift downstream to its discovery location. Ballistics expert Dr. Patricia Wong analyzed the fiberglass fragments and determined they showed impact patterns consistent with multiple strikes from an object with the approximate density and hardness of alligator skull bone. She calculated that generating the observed damage would require an impact force equivalent to a 600-pound object moving at approximately 15 miles per hour. This matched the striking capability of a large alligator performing a defensive tail strike. Water flow analysis, conducted by hydrologists from the Southwest Florida Water Management District, revealed that objects floating on the surface at Kata's last known location would naturally drift toward the area where her kayak was found, carried by subtle currents created by underground springs. However, objects sinking in the deeper pools would remain stationary, trapped by the channel's unique topography and dense vegetation. The investigation expanded to include historical records of alligator attacks in Florida waters. Research revealed that the Myakka River system had recorded 3 previous fatal alligator encounters since 1980, all involving solo kayakers or canoeists during spring months when large females were establishing nesting territories. In each case, the victim's watercraft was found intact but empty, with bodies recovered days or weeks later in various states of decomposition. Dr. Harrison's forensic analysis of the historical cases revealed consistent patterns in the attack scenarios. Victims typically encountered alligators in narrow channels where escape routes were limited, and the animals felt cornered or threatened. The attacks occurred rapidly, with victims having little time to radio for help or signal distress. In 2 of the 3 cases, personal items were later found at distances, suggesting they had been transported by the attacking animals. Behavioral analysis of the tagged female alligator revealed additional concerning information. Tracking data showed she had been unusually active in the weeks preceding Kata's disappearance, with movement patterns indicating increased territorial behavior. The animal had been observed engaging in multiple aggressive encounters with other alligators in her territory, suggesting heightened stress levels during the 2019 nesting season. Wildlife cameras installed after the boot discovery captured the female alligator displaying unusual behaviors not typically documented in scientific literature. She was observed carrying large sticks and debris to her nesting area, building what appeared to be a secondary cache or storage site adjacent to her primary nest. The purpose of this behavior remained unclear, but it suggested intelligence and planning beyond normal alligator cognition. Temperature data from the discovery site revealed that soil conditions around the alligator nest had remained unusually stable over the 4-year period, with minimal seasonal variation in moisture and acidity levels. This microenvironment would have provided ideal preservation conditions for organic materials, explaining why Kata's boots remained relatively intact despite prolonged exposure to the elements. The ongoing investigation has attracted collaboration from international wildlife experts specializing in large reptile behavior. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka from the Tokyo Institute of Technology provided analysis of similar cases involving large crocodilians in Southeast Asia, noting that apex predators occasionally developed individual hunting patterns that deviated from typical species behavior. He suggested that the Mayaka River female might represent a rare example of learned predatory adaptation. Laboratory analysis of sediment samples from around the nest site revealed traces of human DNA at concentrations consistent with prolonged decomposition of organic material. The genetic material was too degraded for positive identification, but preliminary testing indicated European ancestry consistent with Kata's Finnish heritage. Additional testing using more sensitive detection methods remained in progress. The case has generated ongoing scientific interest in alligator behavior modification and territorial adaptation. Researchers are studying whether individual animals can develop specialized hunting techniques that target specific types of prey or environmental situations. The Mayaka River female's documented behavior suggests a level of strategic thinking previously unrecognized in alligator psychology. Current monitoring of the nest site includes motion-activated cameras, seismic sensors to detect large animal movement, and water quality monitoring to track any changes in the local ecosystem. The female alligator continues to use the location for seasonal nesting, showing no indication of abandoning the territory despite increased human attention and scientific scrutiny surrounding the area.